Very good morning, everyone. Welcome to the virtual classes. In today's session, we will start with a new module, Module 3, Income Recognition and Asset Classification Norms. Basically, these are some rules and regulations, the guidelines given by Reserve Bank of India related to income recognition and assets classifications. Okay, classifying assets into different types in a bank. So sometimes most of the students, they will think, so what kind of assets will be there in a bank? There may be a few computers, a building, that's it, right? No, in a bank we consider all our investments and even loans as assets. Okay, so even if you're lending loan to the customers, that also we consider as a asset. So that is why in this entire chapter we are going to discuss about that, how they will do this monitoring system, why they need to do this monitoring, and how they classified what are the different types of assets in a bank. So everything we will understand. Before that, we need to understand the basics about this. See, in line with the international practices and as per the recommendations made by the Narasimhan Committee on the financial system, the Reserve Bank of India has introduced in a phased manner, that means in different phases. Okay, they introduced the prudential norms for income recognition and asset classification and also provisioning for the advances portfolio of the banks so as to move towards greater consistency and transparency in the published accounts. The main aim of this, okay, income recognition and asset classification norms is to bring transparency and accuracy. Okay, so the basic concepts related to IRAC, income recognition and asset classification norms. Prior to the 1992, banks used to recognize interest on entire portion of loans and advances. That means before 1992, banks used to consider, okay, the entire portion of loans and advances interest amount. So irrespective of the fact that whether each of the loan advanced is a good or a bad. So it may be bad loan, it may be good loan. So here you need to understand a concept called debt, doubtful debt and bad debt. This is important to understand this concept. See, most of you may be knowing this. Debt means what? You are lending some money, okay? Yeah, you are giving some money to somebody else. So that becomes a debt. Now, doubtful debt. What is doubtful debt? After lending some money, it may come back, it may not. That means you may recover it, you may not recover it. For that kind of situation, for that kind of debt, we call doubtful debt. Okay, bad debt means it is permanently, you cannot recover it back. That is bad debt. Take for example, you have a friend. Your friend said, I have some emergency, so I need some money, so please give me at least some 50,000 rupees. So you adjusted somewhere 50,000 rupees and gave it to your friend. So it is debt. You can write it in your diary. So I gave 50,000 rupees to my friend. I don't know when he is going to return. So it is a debt. And he told you that I will return within 6 months or 3 months time. Okay, you just mentioned it, within 6 months you will return it. That is debt. Now when it becomes doubtful debt, the same 50,000 rupees will become doubtful debt when you will be in a doubt whether you don't know he is going to repay it or not. In that condition, it becomes doubtful debt. Imagine your friend, he got a job in abroad and he went to abroad. Now he lost his contact number because he changed his SIM, and you don't have any other mutual friends. You don't even know his permanent address. So nothing, there is no communication in between you and your friend. Okay, there is no other person to connect. Now he is not texting you, is not communicating with you by any way. So in this case, what happens? You may be in doubt. Oh, you went to abroad. I lost his contact. I don't know whether we will meet again or not. So we are in doubt. So we may recover, we may not recover. So your same 50,000 rupees amount, that becomes doubtful debt. Now again the same 50,000 rupees will become bad debt when, for example, imagine after some 6 months, you just watching a television, have you are just reading a newspaper, and you got a news that that friend to whom you gave money, he met with an accident, okay, and he died when he reached India. So from in abroad he came to India. So from airport to his house, when he's on the way, he met with accident and he died. So his photo, his name, everything published in a newspaper. In that case, what happens? It is confirmed. You cannot recover your money back. That becomes bad debt. I hope all of you understood in a simple way. Debt, doubtful debt, bad debt. So here the loans are good loans or bad loans. Okay, it may be bad debt. They consider the interest. So this becomes a problem. This has resulted into the following drawbacks. The first drawback is the banks use it to recognize the interest on bad loans. That means even if it is a bad debt, okay, banks use it to recognize the interest on that. Okay, so that becomes a problem. Then due to recognition of interest on income on entire loans and advances, it was difficult for the reader to understand the balance sheet of that bank or the actual financial health of that bank. Okay, it becomes difficult because they're showing the interest and they're showing the entire loan amount even though it is a bad debt. That means they know that they cannot recover it back in the future at any cost. So even then they're showing it in a balance sheet, means it becomes difficult to understand the balance sheet, whether they're getting profit or loss accurately you cannot say, right? So that is one drawback that becomes a problem. Then bank used to pay income tax even on the portion of the interest pertaining to the bad loans. And again there was a problems for a bank, they're showing it in a balance sheet. So because of that reason, even though they are not able to recover their loan amount from the customer, okay, they're not able to recover their money for that bad loans, also they need to pay tax. Again, that is the biggest problem for banks. And the next one is it was difficult to fix the accountability of the bank staff in respect of bad loans advanced. So again, another biggest problem for banks, who will take responsibility? Okay, for example, I'm a bank manager, I'm granting loans. Okay, so few people that taken loan, they are repaying it correctly, but few people they are not repaying it, so it become bad loan. If they are taken loan, they are not repayment, means they are not made the repayment, means it become a bad loan, correct? So now what happens? Who will take that responsibility? Who is accountable for that? To whom you can question? Okay, why these bad loans are increasing? So that is also biggest problem. That becomes a problem for our banks. So because of all these reasons, government felt we need some rules and regulation, some norms, some guidelines related to income recognition, how to recognize the income and asset classification. We need to classify these assets. If you're giving loans, we need to classify, okay? So which is good loan, which is doubtful debt, which is bad debt, we need to classify, and which is non-performing assets, everything. So because of that, this idea came out. Now, income recognition and asset classification norms are rules that prescribe when a loan should be declared as a non-performing asset. What what is the main aim of these norms? The main objective, the main goal of these norms are bringing transparency, one, and the second thing, helping the banks, okay, to classify the assets and incomes. Now see, IRAC are the rules that prescribes when a loan should be declared as a non-performing asset. Okay, when we can say, okay, this loan is a non-performing asset. So I will explain you in the next slide what is non-performing asset. So that is one thing here. Then once a loan is a non-performing asset, the RBI requires that any recovery should not be classified as an income once the loan becomes a non-performing asset. Okay, if after becoming non-performing asset means it's like a doubtful debt. Okay, so once it becomes a non-performing asset, even then, if you recover that money, you no need to consider that as a income. So RBI specifying that. And the third point here, important point to note, banks are also required to share information regarding large borrowers with the RBI for its central repository of information on large credits. So there is a central repository for information on large credits. All the banks, if you're lending more money in a crores to anyone, any businessman, you need to give that information to the RBI. Okay, so that RBI can take actions when they become some willful defaulters. Okay, so these are the main 3 points you need to remember. Now, what does credit monitoring means? Okay, what is credit monitoring? Credit monitoring is the process of periodically reviewing your credit reports for accuracy and changes that could be indicative of fraudulent activities. It is just auditing in a simple words. Credit monitoring means checking out your credit worthiness and checking out all your financial reports, your documents. Is there any fraudulent activity, whether you're modifying anything, just checking out everything. What is credit monitoring in the banks then? Credit monitoring is an integral part of lending activities. Okay, credit monitoring is very important. So banks have a great responsibility to maintain the quality of the assets and to recover the interest and other dues in time. So you may be knowing about this concept. Whenever you apply for a loan, you can apply it for a personal loan, house loan, home loan, any car loan, any kind of loan. First thing, when you apply for loan in a bank, they will ask you, sir, if your CIBIL score is good, sir or madam, if your CIBIL score is good, we can give you loan, they say. So CIBIL score is what? That shows you your credit worthiness. So that is credit monitoring. They will check whether you have opted for any other loan in any other bank. If you already taken a loan, how you are repaying it, you are repaying it correctly every month, okay, or you are failing to repay the EMI. So they will check everything. Based on that, they will give rating. For that we call CIBIL, credit worthiness. Okay, so non-performing assets. So just now I told you, sometimes when you are giving loan to the customers, okay, due to some reasons they may not be able to repay their money back. Okay, in that case, if anybody not repaying their money for more than 90 days, it becomes non-performing asset. I told you already, for bank, loan, giving loan to the public is an asset. Okay, that loan is an asset and you must get monetary benefits from that loan. That means every month you must get an interest, okay, with the principal amount. If for the 90 days or more than 90 days you are not getting any single rupee for that loan, means you can consider that as a non-performing asset. So a non-performing asset is a loan or advance for which the principal or interest payment remained overdue for a period of 90 days. Remember this, non-performing assets. Then sub-classification for the non-performing assets. So you can classify the non-performing assets into different types. So I told you it is just asset classifications. Okay, income recognition and asset classification. In that they mentioned how we can classify these assets. So lender usually provides a grace period before classifying an asset as a non-performing. Afterwards, the lender or a bank will categorize the non-performing asset into one of the following subcategories. Basically, they will give some time. That is why they are giving 90 days time. Okay. After giving 3 months time, even then, if you are not making payment to the bank, then they will consider that as a non-performing asset. Then after considering non-performing asset, they will just go for a subdivision in that. The first one, standard asset. Standard asset means they are non-performing assets that have been past due from anywhere from 90 days to 12 months. That means from 3 months to 12 months, if the money is due, you are not recovered even a single rupee. In that case, we call it standard asset. Okay, so standard non-performing asset it is. So till the 90 days they are not made the payment means it become non-performing asset. So after 90 days, within 12 months, so you're not received any money means that is standard asset, standard non-performing asset actually. So actually it is a normal risk level. Within 1 year, if you're not able to recover means it is a normal risk. If it goes beyond 1 year, then it is some higher risk. Then the second one is substandard assets. Okay, first one is standard asset, second one is substandard asset. So non-performing assets that have been past due for more than 12 months. Okay, so standard asset means 90 days to 12 months, that means 3 months to 12 months, standard asset. Substandard asset means more than 12 months, they have significantly higher risk. Okay, and it is combined with a borrower that has less than ideal credit. So usually, you know, the borrower they may become insolvent. I hope you know the concept of solvent, insolvent. Solvents means uh, the capacity to repay the debt amount. For him we call insolvent. Insolvent means he is not able to repay his debt amount. Okay, for him we call insolvent. So substandard asset means it is more than 12 months time. So any money. Then doubtful debts. I explained you the debt, doubtful debt, and the bad debt concept. Here, doubtful debt means it is non-performing asset in the doubtful debt category have been past due for at least 18 months. Okay, 18 months. That means 1.5 years. So up to 90 days non-performing asset, 90 days to 1 year standard asset. So 1 year, more than 1 year, okay, and more than 1 year, less than 1.5 year, you will get substandard asset. If it is more than 80 months or up to 18 months, okay, due, for that we call doubtful debts. Then loss asset means it is bad debts. Okay, they are non-performing asset with an extended period of non-payment. With this class, banks are forced to accept the loan will never be repaid. Will never be repaid means you cannot recover it and must record a loss on their balance sheet. That means they must record it as a bad debt. Okay, the meaning of this is in future they cannot recover this money back. So loss at, imagine any person taken loan from a bank, okay, and there is no nominee for his loan. He has given some marks card, some documents, imagine, and unfortunately he got dead. In that case they cannot recover the money back. Correct. If there is any surety, at least they can try to recover it. Without surety sometimes they will give loan. In that case they cannot recover, that becomes loss asset. That is, so loss asset is bad debts. Doubtful debts, you know the meaning. Correct. So these are the four types of assets, that means subcategorized the non-performing assets. Then causes for non-performing asset. What are the main reasons why this non-performing assets arises? I hope all of you understood the meaning of non-performing assets. Non-performing asset means simple. Okay, ಬ್ಯಾಂಕಿಂದ ಲೋನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಲೋನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಅಪ್ ಟು 90 ಡೇಸ್ ತನಕ ಓಕೆ ಕಸ್ಟಮರ್ ಏನೂ ರೀಪೇ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಗೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಆ ಲೋನ್ಗೆ ಇ ಎಮ್ ಐ ಎವ್ರಿ ಮಂತ್ ಪೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಲ್ವಾ. 3 months ಆದ್ರೂ ನಾವು ಇ ಎಮ್ ಐ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ ಯಾವುದು ಪೇ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ ಫಾರ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ನಾನ್ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮಿಂಗ್ ಅಸೆಟ್. I told you, for bank loan is asset. Okay, if it is not giving any return means that is non-performing, it is not performing. That is why they call non-performing asset. Okay, now the reasons, what are the causes of non-performing asset? The first one is willful defaults. There will be few people's willful defaulters, we call them, okay, especially businessmen. They will take a loan intentionally, they are not going to repay it back. For them we call willful defaulters. Okay. Example, recently you can take the example of Vijay Mallya. Okay, he had taken loan and intentionally has not repaid it. Oh, government considered and bank considered him as a willful defaults. I don't know whether intentionally or not, but banks considered him as a willful default. Industrial crisis. Sometimes there may be crisis, a huge loss for the industries. Okay, so imagine present situation due to this outbreak of COVID-19, Corona. Okay, there is a huge crisis now. Not even a businessman's, even for the personal loans, we cannot repay our loan because there is no income for the people. Correct. So there is no income for the businessmen, they cannot repay the loan. So that is one reason for a non-performing assets. Now RBI itself, they had given 3 months time, okay, up to the June. So banks no need to collect EMI for any loan. Next, ineffective recovery tribunal. So there will be recovery tribunals. That means teams in a bank to recover the loans. Sometimes they are ineffective. They are not effective. They are not efficient to recover the loans. In that case, also the non-performing assets will increase. That means they cannot recover loans back. So non-performing asset increases. Then natural calamities. If there is any earthquake, floods, volcano, of course there will be huge crisis. Due to that, non-performing assets for the bank will increase. Then lack of demand. Sometimes imagine if there is no demand at all for loans. In that case also it increases the non-performing assets. Bank having money, okay, they can lend money to the public, but nobody is taking loan means it is like a dead money. There is no return from that money, correct? So that becomes a non-performing asset. So lack of demand. Then defective lending process. So when they're lending loans, there may be some defective in that process. See, basically they must collect all the information related to the customer, okay, who is opting for the loan, who is taking loan. They must collect complete information. Okay, they must check with the CIBIL score, and if possible they must take the surety, okay, for that loan. If they do this, they can easily recover. Okay, there are more chances to recover his loan. Even that after the death of that person, we can recover it from the surety person. But when there is some defective in a lending process, they are not following the process completely. In that case, non-performing assets increases and a lenient lending norms. Lenient means more liberal lending without asking anything. For example, see, nowadays you may be knowing this, there are so many applications. Okay, within 5 minutes, within 10 minutes they will just give loans. They will transfer money to your bank account, 1 lakh rupees, 50,000 rupees, 2 lakh rupees, correct? So very leniently, without asking even your pay slip, salary slip, they will give you loan. In that case, non-performing assets will increase. These are the main reasons to increase the non-performing assets. So this is enough for today's session. Thank you so much. I hope all of you understood. So in the next class, I will continue with the same chapter. Have a nice day. If you have any doubts, please text me. Thank you. Bye bye.